More at eagleisland.com. It's 8 o'clock. This is Northern Light for Friday, July 12th. Good morning. I'm Monica Sandreski.
And I'm Catherine Wheeler. Flooding is receding in some of the places hardest hit by storms earlier this week. In Lewis County, the cleanup is just beginning.
There's one road in particular in the village of Lowville, and that got hit the worst. It's buckled, it's like wavy. The pavement is wavy and cracked.
Today, we hear from an 11-year-old who's reached the age when social media is becoming a bigger part of her life. She and her parents are trying to find a delicate balance between the benefits and potential harm.
It's just better when you're older, or because then you're more mature to do good things with it.
And on the show, 3 local anglers are competing in Major League Fishing's competition on Lake Champlain this weekend. We'll hear from one of them as he heads out for today's competition. All that's coming up on Northern Light. Stick with us. Support for Northern Light here on North Country Public Radio comes from the Adirondack Land Trust, conserving forests, farmlands, and waters, scenic vistas, and wild places. Learn more at adirondacklandtrust.org. And by Seacom Credit Union, serving the financial needs of people throughout northern New York and northwestern Vermont, in person, online at seacom.org, and on your smartphone. This is Northern Light. I'm Monica Sandreski.
And I'm Catherine Wheeler. The flood has receded from Lowville and Lewis County, leaving behind plenty of damage to roads, homes, a school, fairgrounds, and more. There's a reason Lowville was so hard hit by Tuesday's heavy rains. Despite its pronunciation, the village is called Lowville for a reason. It's because in the low Black River Valley between the Tug Hill Plateau and the Adirondacks. Julie Abbas is a freelance reporter based in Lewis County.
So it all just ends up filtering right down through the center of the village, and that's what happened yesterday. We just don't usually have such a wide band of heavy rain, and it all happened within a couple of hours, like 6 inches in the first couple of hours.
Abbas surveyed Lowville with local officials yesterday. She told David Summerstein the rivers of the water are gone, but the damage remains.
A lot of the water dissipated at night, and then in the lowest areas this morning at like 7:30. It was hard to tell, some of the residents said, because so many basements were still being pumped out by firefighters and just people with their own pumps. However, now the fallout is just figuring out how to get things fixed for all of these homeowners, businesses. The FEMA declarations are what the county are working on. But there's one road in particular in the village of Lowville, and that got hit the worst. It's buckled. It's like wavy. The pavement is wavy and cracked. The gutter cover, cement slabs that covered the gutters are in stacks all over the road. But otherwise, it's surprisingly quiet. The roads have all reopened. The exception is out further, out of the Lowville center. So in the town of New Bremen, all of the roads are still closed, state, county, and town. They may reopen soon, some of them, but that's the floodplain for the Black River. Mm-hmm. And that's where all the water ended up.
We saw on in Facebook videos that were circulating just, some damage to, some big public places like the fairgrounds, Lowville Academy. There was water sloshing through the hallways. What about those places?
Well, the fairgrounds is looking okay, and since the county fair is next week, and that's a huge event here, it's like a big family reunion, and so that will be okay. It's all natural dirt and it's drained and it'll soak in by next week. the school has gotten into action right away. There's about 100 volunteers and workers in there pulling up flooring. The water had been drained out, trying to make sure no mold develops, making sure it's safe, getting it, of course, DOH approved, and then laying down more flooring as quickly as possible. The football field is a new turf field that was completed, I think, just yesterday. The final touches were put on it before the storms hit. And so that they have crew workers out there squeegeeing with these massive machines the water that's still soaked into the turf and trying to clear that out so there's no damage underneath. And then the hospital, this is a publicly owned hospital, one of only 2 county-owned hospitals in the state. And while all their new infrastructure that was just built in the last 3 years for a new surgical pavilion, that stands well. It didn't have any issues, but an older parking lot area, the landscaping surrounding it, it's built into a side of a hill, and there was a waterfall coming down that last night. And so there was a bit of damage. Luckily, no danger. There's been no injuries, the officials all said, not to first responders, not to residents. The hospital services were not interrupted, so it'll be just finding the money for the hospital as well to rethink the drainage and fix that infrastructure on the backside of that lot for them.
Lewis County emergency officials held a press conference. What are they most concerned about now going forward?
The biggest thing will be replacing so many of these roads that were damaged. Lowville, yes, and village officials weren't involved in that press conference, but I spoke to them after, and they have the same concerns as the county, which is working with FEMA, getting the money to replace roads, figuring out what that'll look like. And as the highway director for the county said, Timothy Hunt, it's going to change the course of the summer. He said you can't make infrastructure big enough for this kind of volume. And that was echoed by the village. They just did a multi-million-dollar 5 streets project that changed all the drainage systems of some of the main arteries around the village, and they held up really well. But all these small ones that don't ever have to handle this much water, that's a different thing. So it's figuring out what they can do as these storms are happening more often, and seeing what they can prepare for and getting the funding to do that.
That's freelance reporter Julie Abbas. She's based in Carthage. She spoke with David Summerstein.
On the eastern side of our region, Essex County, including the towns of Moriah and Westport, all declared a state of emergency because of flash flooding. Westport, Elizabethtown, and Essex reported washed out roads. Maggie Bartley lives 3 miles south of Elizabethtown on Route 9. She's right on the Boquet River and next to a bridge.
We had over 6 inches of rain in 6 hours because we have a weather gauge. By 11 o'clock last night, the entire valley here behind my house was completely underwater with water just roaring through here. There were trees in the river that were being floated downstream, and I could hear them hitting the bridge, which is a big steel bridge. And that meant that the water was high enough for the trees to be slamming into the bridge.
County officials and town officials were out yesterday assessing damage to 6 state highways and dozens of county and local roads. Ike Tyler is supervisor for the town of Westport. He says the wastewater plant gauges measured just under 7 inches of total rainfall. Tyler says from what he and his crew have seen, at least 20 town roads are damaged and the town beach was flooded. He says the damage will likely take weeks, even months to repair.
We had one road that had a landslide that went over that we haven't got to yet. We're just, we're in a mess here. We have a beach house, and that got, for the first time in its history, water came through that, and we have sand in that. And we have a bridge down there that's a footbridge that is, even when the Hurricane Sandy, I believe came through, the water never made it to that bridge. Last night, the water went over that bridge, and it's, I lived down by there, and a good chunk of my property got washed away. I've lived in that house since the 70s, and I've never seen anything like this before.
Tyler says he hopes to get most town roads open by the beginning of next week.
And yesterday afternoon, areas in St. Lawrence County saw flash flooding as rainwater from the storm moved downstream from the Adirondacks. On the Grass River, the hamlets of Russell and Pirates saw water levels rise quickly starting around 4 p.m. By 7 p.m. last night, residents in Pirates say water was in yards, basements, and around vehicles like ATVs and RVs near the river.
In non-flooding news, 3 Amish people were involved in a buggy accident in DeKalb in St. Lawrence County yesterday afternoon. First responders told WWNY-TV that a car hit the side of their buggy and the back leg of the horse. There were injuries, and those people who were hurt were transferred to Canton-Potsdam Hospital. Police are investigating. This is NCPR.
You're listening to Northern Light here on North Country Public Radio. It's 8:10. Good morning. I'm Catherine Wheeler.
And I'm Monica Sandreski. Coming up, John Warren checks the trail conditions for us in the Adirondacks this weekend. Then after that, we'll get a preview of the upcoming concert in Norwood on Sunday. Well, that's coming up only here on Northern Light, which is supported by the Depot Theater in Westport, inviting all to take a journey without leaving the station. Learn more at depottheater.org, and by the Adirondack Foundation and the Adirondack Birth to 3 Alliance, dedicated to providing all children the best possible start in life. AdirondackBT3.org. Music now by famous letter writer out of Plattsburgh.
A recent New York state law is trying to restrict what kids see on social media platforms. It's part of a much larger national conversation about the role social media and the internet plays in the lives of young people. This is something all parents and families are navigating on a daily basis. Today, we hear from an 11-year-old who's reached the age when social media is becoming a bigger part of her life. She and her parents are trying to find a delicate balance between the benefits and the potential harm. Amy Feiereisel has more.
11-year-old Lydia Francis has long blonde hair and inquisitive eyes. She just finished the 4th grade at Lake Placid Elementary. She doesn't have a cell phone yet, but she does have an iPad.
I like to draw, so I have a lot of drawing apps. I have this puzzle game.
But there's a lot she can't do on it.
I can't go on the Play Store because it's locked, and you can't unlock it. And I can't go on Google. If I have a math problem, it's I can't search it.
That's because the iPad has parental controls. Lydia remembers negotiating with her mom to get it at all.
She was like, aren't you a little too young? But I'm like, my sister Nora got it when she was my age.
Lydia is the youngest of 3 kids. Her mom, Kelsey Francis, says the house rule is clear. No smartphones before the 8th grade.
My role as a teacher and my husband as a child psychologist, I think we just have seen that once you let the genie out of the bottle, you can't put it back in. Being a parent is hard enough without having to manage social media.
Francis has been teaching high school for over 2 decades and actually went to her students for advice when she and her husband were considering getting a phone for their eldest.
And I asked my students, my 12th graders, should I get my son a phone? And they were like, don't, just, delay it as long as you can. Which surprised me that they weren't saying that I was some sort of mean, archaic parent, because they have an awareness that they are both addictive and cause a lot of unnecessary drama in their lives.
But phones also play a central role in kids' social lives these days. High school sports teams communicate over Snapchat's group chat. On school vacation, teenagers check in on Instagram. This is how they make and stay connected with their friends. And that's why Lydia has the iPad. She can text.
I just really wanted one because all my friends had a device, and I was the only one that didn't. And my friends were like, I need to text you. I'm like, I can't. So that was hard because my mom has to communicate all my friends. So it's like a little easier once I have an iPad.
Lydia says in her class of 15 kids, 5 have smartphones.
Are you looking forward to getting a phone someday?
Sort of, but sort of not, because like technology, it does good things and bad things, like having light, having a movie to watch. But then there's like the part where like when social media comes up, it's like, I don't know if I want to use it.
Right now, Lydia can basically text her friends one-on-one. She says she likes that because people can be mean on social media.
It's like Snapchat. Like they use, like when you text something on Snapchat, it automatically disappears so people can write mean things about you.
She says social media can also cause fights among friends. She brought up a Snapchat feature called Friend Solar Systems, which shows users their best 8 friends on the platform, who they talk the most to.
So it's like you can literally search your friend on Snapchat and see who she's friends with and who she's more like communicative to. Then the drama starts, and no one wants that, and then it just turns into a big fight.
There are so many social media concerns that kids are wrestling with. Being recorded, having an embarrassing photo taken, feeling left out when they see their friends hanging out without them. Lydia says she understands why her parents want her to wait.
It's just better when you're older, or like, because then you're more mature to do good things with it.
Lydia's mom, Kelsey Francis, says as a parent, she'd love to see the societal pendulum swing away from kids having access to devices and social media. She compared it to cigarette use in the U.S.
Smoking was everywhere, and then obviously massive education campaigns and more regulations about it made it dramatically decrease. And I just wonder. I wonder if that will happen with social media. You know, that a generation from now, people will be going, oh my gosh, you gave those devices to children?
She says it would be a lot easier to navigate for her own kids if there was more of an established norm of not giving children devices. So for now, iPads suffice for her 2 youngest, and her 17-year-old has a cell phone. Amy Feiereisel, North Country Public Radio in Lake Placid.
This story was the 3rd in a mini-series about social media and kids. All of the stories and voices came from you, our listeners, through NCPR's Texting Club. Thank you for helping to shape our coverage and spark meaningful conversation. If you'd like to join the Texting Club, text the word NEW to 315-978-6277. This is NCPR.
You're listening to Northern Light right here on North Country Public Radio. It's about 20 after 8. Good morning. I'm Monica Sandreski.
And I'm Catherine Wheeler. In just a minute, a conversation with a bluegrass fiddler who's bringing his band to Norwood this weekend. But first, Monica has a look at the weather.
I do indeed. At last check, it was 65 degrees in Inlet in the southern Adirondacks, 73 degrees in Glens Falls already, 68 in Star Lake, 72 degrees right now in Chazy, 71 in Waddington along the St. Lawrence River, and 70 degrees right now in Black River. We can expect partly cloudy skies in the forecast today with temperatures rising into the mid to upper 70s, a chance of rain showers for much of the region, continuing overnight tonight with lows in the 60s. A chance of some isolated storms in the forecast tomorrow, but by and large, tomorrow and Sunday should be pretty sunny skies in the forecast with highs in the 80s expected. And for a look at what that means for the trail conditions in the Adirondacks, here's John Warren with the New York Almanac.
On Saturday, sunrise in the Adirondack High Peaks will be at about 5:24 a.m. and sunset at about 8:38. After heavy rain from the remnants of Hurricane Beryl moved through the region this week, drier weather is expected this weekend, although it will be hot and pretty humid. Drink plenty of water and rest often. High Peak summit temperatures are expected to be mostly in the mid-60s through the weekend. The levels of rivers and streams are well above normal for this time of year after that heavy rain. Stream crossings may be difficult or impassable, especially in the high peaks and western Adirondacks. Be careful of fast-moving waters. It will be a great weekend for whitewater rafting. At North Creek, the Hudson River is at about 5 feet this morning, but is forecast to fall to about 4 feet by Sunday. At Piercefield, the Racket River is forecast to be at about 5.5 feet through the weekend. And Lake Champlain is at about 96 feet on the gauge just north of Whitehall and slowly rising. Water temperatures are quite warm. Mirror Lake is in the upper 70s. Lake Champlain is mostly in the lower 70s. And the water temperature at Warner Band Lake George is in the upper 70s. Some of the region's warmest waters will approach the 80-degree mark by Sunday afternoon. In the Independence River and Watson's East Triangle Wild Forest, numerous town roads have been closed by flooding and washouts. The Madawaska Road is also closed due to storm damage, as is the Lake Lila Road. County Route 7 is closed, which will cause cancellation of some camping reservations in the Lincoln Pond Campground. And finally this week, the Westport boat launch on Lake Champlain is inaccessible due to a road closure on Route 22 there. Those are the outdoor conditions in the Adirondacks this weekend. For North Country Public Radio, this is John Warren from the New York Almanac. Online at NewYorkAlmanac.com.
A Grammy Award-winning bluegrass fiddler is bringing his band to Norwood Village Green concert series this Sunday. Michael Cleveland began playing music in Indiana when he was 4 years old. He was born blind and is partially deaf. He's recorded and performed with big bluegrass names like Billy Strings and Dale Ann Bradley. Cleveland spoke with NCPR intern Skylar White about his music and his career.
Even though none of my family played, my grandparents had gotten really into bluegrass music like a few years before I was born. It got to be where there were bluegrass shows going on about every Saturday night. And when my grandparents weren't doing their shows, they would go to the other ones. And from the time I was about 6 months old, they started taking me. But when I was 4 years old, I remember being at one of those bluegrass shows and I heard a fiddle player play the Orange Blossom Special. I don't remember much about being 4 years old, but I remember hearing that sound and knowing right away that I had to learn how to do that, whatever it took. One of my favorite things to do other than to go to the bluegrass shows was to go to my grandparents' house, and they had a great record, 8-track collection. They had this stereo system with a big speaker on either side of it. I'd take one of those speakers and I'd lay it down on the floor, and then I'd lay my head on it and listen to music and then go to sleep. Developed my ear at an early age, and that has been a huge help in learning everything. But aside from all that, it's just dedication and basically saying, okay, I'm going to learn this, I'm going to do it, I'm going to sit here in my basement and play with this over and over and over and over again until I absolutely know it. Oh man, he's blind. Do we have to take care of him? Do we have to feed him? Do we have to babysit him or what? But that's one reason that I really feel fortunate to have went to a school for the blind, because I was around a lot of really successful visually impaired people who had great mobility and were able to get out and do things and kind of excel at whatever it was they were doing. kind of like either a really big family or a small town. So you kind of know people even if you don't. It seemed like too long before I was getting ready to graduate. But a good friend of mine, fiddle player Deanie Richardson, had recommended me to play with Dale Ann. And she said, there's this kid in Indiana that's really good. I'm very proud of the Grammy that I won in 2019, 2020. I was very proud of that. I've gotten to play the Grand Ole Opry quite a few times, and it's hard to pinpoint any one thing, but I've gotten to meet and play with most of the heroes that I've listened to on albums. And I mean, when I was a little kid, I would be at my grandparents' house and I would pretend like I was either playing the Grand Ole Opry or Carnegie Hall.
For your love, I'd stop the hands of time for your love. I'd dig a diamond mine for your love. I'd do it all the time.
It's the traveling and staying in hotels and getting lost and, fueling the vehicle and fixing the vehicle that breaks down and all this other stuff that we get paid for. Yeah. We do the 90 minutes on stage for free. Man, when the music's good and it's a great audience you're playing for, it just makes it all worthwhile.
Oh, the treasure's not taken. It's the living of the game.
That's Michael Cleveland. He and his band Flamekeeper will be performing at the Norwood Village Green Concert Series this Sunday at 7 p.m. It's free with donations encouraged, and the story was produced by NCPR intern Skylar White.
You're listening to Northern Light right here on North Country Public Radio. It's 8:28. Good morning. I'm Monica Sandreski. Before we head out, we want to head out to Lake Champlain. Dozens of anglers are out on the lake today for Day 2 of Major League Fishing's Toyota Series tournament. 3 North Country natives qualified to compete against the top anglers and bass fishing pros in the Northeast this weekend, including Brett Carnwright and Ryan Lattenville of Plattsburgh and Alec Morrison of Peru. And I actually caught up with Ryan Lattenville of Plattsburgh this morning, right before he headed out. Where are you right now? Can you describe what you're seeing?
Yeah, I'm idling out through the boat check. I'm getting ready to go check in for a morning takeoff, and I'm just idling out to the pontoon boat where we check in and just they do live well check and all that stuff to make sure nobody's cheating or anything like that.
This is Day 2 today. How did it go yesterday?
So yesterday, any other year, I would have had a great day. I had 19 pounds, 13 ounces, and normally any other tournament, any other time, that would be like maybe top 15. And now I'm in 33rd. They caught them so good yesterday.
Wow. I mean, we know Lake Champlain is just such a good spot for anglers, but that's tremendous.
It's fishing better and better each year. It's truly insane, because what was really nice about yesterday is it's good to see, because smallmouth usually dominate as of lately, but yesterday there was tons of big largemouth weighed in, which was awesome.
When you head out this morning, what sort of things are you looking for to find a heavier fish?
Right now, the fish tend to be deeper. just historically, in July, they start to head out after they spawn. So I key in right now on bait fish. The fish that they eat are pretty crucial to find right now. And if you can find the stuff they're eating, typically